That may be the greatest catch I've ever seen in my life.
Alright guys, I really hope y'all enjoyed the running back version of this video this morning, but now we are going to go over 5 wide receivers that I think you should be starting in week 3 for a multitude of reasons. Like I said in the last video, I mean, some of these guys are going to be based on matchups. Some of these guys are being based on the opportunity that we expect them to be able to receive in week 3. But regardless, I mean, all of these guys are guys I think that you should be putting in your lineup. I just said the word guys like a billion times, but regardless, don't mind me. And obviously, I'm not going to be able to talk about every wide receiver in the NFL because I'm not going to be able to really go in depth on it, or I'm going to have to bore you all with an hour-long video. So what I'm going to do instead, if I don't talk about your player, is I'm going to be live streaming tonight, and I'm going to be live streaming on Saturday. Then I'm also going to be live streaming Sunday morning. So Friday night, Saturday night, and Sunday morning. If you want me to talk about your guys, just make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Make sure that you have the bell on next to the subscription. Then you can be one of the first people in the live streams. Just shoot me a quick question about whatever start-sit decision that you'll have this week, and I'll be able to answer it live for you. But, I mean, if you wait until there are like 400 people in the live stream, it's going to be very hard for me to get to your question, even though I will try my best, but no guarantees at that point. What I highly recommend you doing is going down there, subscribing to the channel, hitting that bell so you know exactly when we go live on those nights. Okay, but yeah, let's go and let's just start with these players. And let's start with the first guy that I think some people are going to just kind of shy away from and assume that his week 2 performance was just one of these random variance spike weeks. But I told y'all after week 1 to go and trade for this player and to make sure that he was going to be an auto start for you every single week this season. And this is Terry McLaurin. So while we're looking at a player like Terry McLaurin, the thing is, yes, I understand that these down the field wide receivers, that these are just kind of the burner types. They tend to be highly volatile week to week. That is unless they are the clear number 1 options on their offenses. And looking among the rest of the Washington football team, they have Logan Thomas, they have Antonio Gibson, and then at the wide receiver position, they have Terry McLaurin. I mean, even the little bit of depth that they had behind Terry McLaurin, such as guys like Kelvin Harmon. I mean, Kelvin Harmon went out there and tore his ACL in training camp, so that depth went away. And I mean, nobody else has really stepped up in this offense. So we are going to be able to continue to expect Terry McLaurin to just dominate both in both in targets and receptions going forward. So he is a guy, regardless of matchup, should be in your starting lineup. And on top of all of this, he actually has a fantastic matchup for week 3, and this is going up against the Cleveland Browns. And I understand the Cleveland Browns, like I said in the last video when I told y'all to go start Antonio Gibson, they have different playmakers around the entire defense that are extremely talented, but for some reason, they just cannot put it all together. I think that maybe it's just due to the culture in the locker room. I'm not going to speculate too much on that because I don't want to talk about what I don't know about. And regardless, Terry McLaurin, any way you cut it, he is going to be a fantastic start in week 3. Make sure he is in your lineup. Now, the next guy, I think that you're probably going to hear his name mentioned on every podcast that you listen to this week because he is truly an emerging player, is Diontae Johnson. So I will get it out right away. We all know, I've been on very public record about this, that Juju Smith-Schuster is my highest owned player in fantasy football. And that's something very reckless to do when you are having to invest so much draft capital into him. Like, guys, I'll tell you right now, if Juju is going to have a very poor performance this season, I am probably going to be losing more money than I should have to go out there and lose. So I am not rooting for Diontae Johnson. My heart is telling me, no, don't start Diontae Johnson. Juju is the wide receiver 1 here. But after 2 weeks, I mean, we have seen how Big Ben wants to deploy these wide receivers, who he is looking for on the football field. And I mean, the guy is Diontae Johnson. And it hurts to say, but I got to use my brain whenever I'm going out here and recommending guys to y'all, not my heart. And I think that this is one of these plays where Diontae Johnson going up against the Houston Texans. I know the Baltimore Ravens wide receivers weren't able to go out there and get a ton going against Houston, but that was mainly due to Baltimore just going out there and completely dominating that game from the very get-go in week 2. And I think that the Pittsburgh Steelers, while they are a talented football team, they don't have half the talent that Baltimore does. So this is going to be more of a competitive game. And if Big Ben is going to have to air it out this game, possibly get into somewhat of a shootout with Deshaun Watson, I think that Diontae Johnson, I mean, he has 30 points in his range of outcomes. I think he can also drop you anywhere from like 7 to 8. I'm hoping that he's around that range because I have him on pretty much no fantasy football rosters because I am so heavily invested into Juju. But regardless, I mean, after the first 2 weeks, it's looking like Deontay Johnson is going to emerge as a very, very good player in fantasy football. And I think that we should start considering him as an auto start in week 3, unless we see that the targets in week 3 can start going different places. But until that happens, I mean, Deontay Johnson is a guy that you need to be putting in your fantasy football lineup. Okay, now let's get to our next 2 guys. I'm going to kind of combine these guys because they just have the prime matchup that I've been talking about the entire football season. I mean, they are going up against the Carolina Panthers, and y'all know every single week this season, I've been telling you to start every player that you have that is going up against the Carolina Panthers because I identified them right away before the season started, and I told y'all to go out there and start Henry Ruggs, Josh Jacobs, Darren Waller, all in week 1, and then because I expected this defense to be a bottom 3 defense in the NFL, and then they come out here, and through 2 weeks, it looks like they proved to be the worst defense in the NFL. So like I said in the last video, I am slamming in as many of these Los Angeles Chargers players as I can into my starting lineup. That includes Keenan Allen. That includes Mike Williams. I'll even throw the tight end Hunter Henry in here. Really, if we see that Justin Herbert is able to come in and be an above average starting quarterback at the NFL level, with all these weapons that he has, I think he is going to be able to just drop at the very minimum 30 points against this Carolina Panthers team. And while that's not going to provide a ton of fantasy production for every single weapon on this offense, I think that if you bet with the weapons on the offense, you're going to get more right than you're going to get more wrong. And then, I mean, that's all we are trying to do in fantasy football. We're trying to get about 65 to 75% of our calls right. And if we are only missing 25 to 35%, I mean, we are going to be extremely profitable over the long term. And that's what we were trying to do. That's what the best players do. And I think one way you can attack this week is you can go out there and try to attack the Carolina Panthers like we are going to be doing all season. And I mean, guys, it looks like that this offense overall is just going to be so much better with Justin Herbert. I think the volume is going to be a lot higher. Maybe we see some more volatility where Justin Herbert has these just questionable plays where he ends up maybe missing a wide receiver, making a bad decision, and that resulting in turnovers. But at the end of the day, that does not really affect too much in our terms of fantasy outlook. That would affect the Los Angeles Chargers. But I mean, we're not trying to make sure that the Los Angeles Chargers win the game. We are trying to make sure that they put up yards, touchdowns, and receptions all over the field. And I think that with this Justin Herbert-led team, that is entirely possible to happen at a very large volume against the Carolina Panthers. Okay, our last guy, I mean, someone that I desperately urged you to go out there and trade for before week 2 kicked off is CeeDee Lamb. Okay, now I know CeeDee Lamb, some people are going to be a little bit hesitant rolling him up against the Seattle Seahawks, but I'll say a couple things here. And one scouting thing we had with the Seattle Seahawks defense in week 1, and I told y'all right away, after week 1, a ton of people were saying, should I drop Hayden Hurst? Should I trade Hayden Hurst? And I was telling y'all, no, guys. I mean, this Seattle Seahawks team has elite defensive back play, and they have great linebackers. I mean, and by defensive back, I mean safety play. And what that is going to do is that is going to shut down the tight end in this offense. So I think that we actually expect Dalton Schultz to come out and in week 3 have a lot smaller of a role than what he saw in week 2. And at the same time, we know that Russell Wilson and Dak Prescott are both, I would argue, top 10 quarterbacks in the NFL. I would argue that Russell Wilson, just at least through a passing the ball standard, is the second best quarterback in the NFL. And I mean, there is just massive, massive potential for this game to be a shootout. And if the Seattle Seahawks are going to be able to slow down and potentially just entirely erase Dalton Schultz from the Dallas Cowboys game plan, we are just going to be seeing an insane amount of volume in both targets, receptions, and yards going to the wide receivers on the Dallas Cowboys offense. That includes Michael Gallup, that includes Amari Cooper, and of course CeeDee Lamb, who actually went out there and led his team in yards in week 2. I mean, just extremely promising for Lamb, and I think this is a player that we should be going out there and considering in our starting lineup every single week. I'm not going to call him an auto start just quite at the moment because, I mean, it's only week 2. We've only seen him play in 2 games. But, I mean, guys, the more we look at this player, the more I wish I had him on every single fantasy football roster because he looks like he is going to be the A.J. Brown of 2020 with the amount of targets he is already accruing in this offense and with how efficient he is being with the targets that he sees. I think nothing's going to change going and playing the Seattle Seahawks, especially if they take Dalton Schultz out of their game plan and force Dak Prescott to throw to the wide receivers more. But yeah, that's all I got. That was 5 guys. I'll recap it for you real quick. Terry McLaurin, Deontay Johnson, Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, and CeeDee Lamb. Now, obviously, you're not going to want to start any of these guys over your locked-in studs like a Tyreek Hill, Julio Jones, But if you're trying to make decisions for your flex spot, I think all of these guys are extremely appealing. And yeah, that's all I got for y'all. If y'all enjoyed the video, please make sure you drop a like. Please make sure you drop a comment telling me who you are looking to start in week 3, as well as come hang out with us at the live streams. I mean, it's been extremely fun lately. At last stream, we had over 400 people. It was just an absolute blast. So if we can continue doing that, I'm going to continue live streaming every single night. And yeah, that's all I got for y'all. I really hope y'all enjoyed it, and I really hope y'all have a great day.